everyone, my name is Sofia. I'm 21 and this is my faith journey. So I was raised Catholic with my 3 siblings. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and I'm the oldest of 4. Our parents are both very Catholic. Our dad was a priest and our mum nearly entered to become a nun. They met each other before she did become a nun, so they both have very strong Catholic origins, and we've been going to Mass every week from when we were born, basically. And it's been something that stayed steadfast throughout my whole journey. Even at the point where I wasn't very strong within my own faith, we would still go to Mass every Sunday. So as most teenagers do, I was 15 and I fell in love. I decided to go and live with the guy that I fell in love with and go against everything that my parents had taught me. We had a very secular relationship, and even though there was deep love for each other, it wasn't what God had planned for me. So through this relationship, I stopped coming to Mass as much, I stopped going to confession, I stopped reading the Bible. I think before this point I hadn't had a very personal relationship with God. It was more from my parents and the practices that they had already instilled in us. I think at this point I still believed there was something bigger out there, but it wasn't the Christian or Catholic God. It was more just some kind of entity that was above us, that had some kind of control over us. So I remember I'd still used to pray, but I'd pray more to the universe or to like whatever is out there instead of praying to God specifically. So yeah, this relationship was probably about a year long, and over the time I was in it, I got further and further away from God and more into more like secular habits, I guess, like drinking. I started smoking at that point as well, trying out some drugs and stuff that God would not be very pleased with. This then all ended up in a breakup at some point, and because of the kind of relationship I was in, it led me to feel quite worthless, and I didn't have a lot of self-worth. I felt worthless. So this led me to go out a lot, go clubbing, drinking, and I sought a lot of validation from men because I felt like that was the only way that I could feel validated within myself. This kind of carried on for a little bit of time. It wasn't that long, and I got into a different relationship. And then midway through this relationship was when I felt God calling me to start reading my Bible again. Well, I didn't actually have a Bible at that point, but I got a Bible and I started reading the Bible. And it was very soon on that I started reading the Bible that I realised that the relationship I was in, it was something I didn't want to be in. Because I realised that if I continued in the relationship I was in, and I then discovered that what I was reading in the Bible was true, then I would regret everything I had done since I opened my Bible. So I made the decision at that point to break up with the person I was with, just in case what was in the Bible was true, to make sure I didn't do anything that I would regret in the future. And this was a decision that I'm happy that I made, because I did then discover that what was in the Bible is true. So after this point, I was reading the Bible, I was praying, I came back to Mass, I was going to confession, but I still didn't want to completely commit to what God says we should do, and I didn't want to completely surrender my life to God, because I still wanted the kind of life I wanted to live. I still wanted to go out with my friends, I still wanted to drink, I still had that feeling of wanting male validation, even though I knew it wasn't the right place to get the validation from. I still had that feeling of wanting it. So this carried on probably for another 6 months. I was in this kind of in-between place where I knew God was there. I wanted to be his or to commit to him, but my selfish desires kind of overrode that. And then I went to a retreat called Youth 2000, which was up in York, and I met other young people that had been through similar journeys to me, and I realised that actually a lot of why I didn't want to commit to God was because I was finding it hard to forgive myself for the ways that I had neglected him and turned my back on him, and I almost didn't want to accept the fact that God could forgive me and could take me back, But I realised when I was speaking to other people there that actually they were whole again because they had surrendered their life to God. And they'd been through the same kind of situations, or sometimes like worse or better situations, but different situations. And it was only in that full surrender that they could find peace and that they could feel whole and that they didn't feel like they needed the validation of other people in the world, but they only needed God. So over this weekend, it was only 3 days, but it felt a lot longer. I spoke to lots of people. I went to adoration every day. It was 24/7 adoration. And before this point, I hadn't really been to adoration properly. It wasn't really something that we did as a family. So it was probably one of the first times we actually went to adoration. And we sang a lot of worship songs, which is another thing. We sang a lot of hymns in churches when we were growing up, but my music was on Spotify, and everything I was listening to was more secular, like pop music or radio music. And this Youth 2000 was where I discovered kind of Christian pop, you could call it. So I discovered all of this, and I started praying more and spending more time with Jesus in the adoration. And over the weekend, I could feel a change in my heart where I did actually want to commit and fully surrender to God. So I went away from the weekend feeling renewed and with like a new purpose to try and live out this life. I think since then, I've had ups and downs, but I wouldn't say ups and downs with my faith as in not believing in God. As in, from that point, I've had like a steady belief that God is there and that I'll always come back to him and that he will forgive me. And obviously I've failed in following his path for me, like many times. But as long as I keep coming back, I know that he will be there. And over time, the things that I thought I wouldn't heal from, they've slowly started healing. I wouldn't say I'm over it or fully healed, but I'm definitely in a better position than I was before that point. So yeah, through God, you can heal anything, and he'll always accept you if you turn back to him. And yeah, that's my story. Thank you for listening.